everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Monday, May the 12th, 2025. On the show tonight, Katie Pasitney from Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, well, close to Edgewood, British Columbia. We're going to get an update as to exactly what the heck has been going on out there for the past couple of months. It's been a couple of months since she's been on the show, and they're expecting a court ruling that could have come out today, might come out tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, early this week. So we're going to get an update on everything that's been going on out there, and hopefully we'll find out later on today or maybe tomorrow that the ostriches, in fact, get to live. For goodness sakes, there's 400 of them. CFIA wants to cull/kill them all. So Katie joins the show in just a second. Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Microscopic level, fighting bacteria, supporting healing, and enhancing your body's defenses. From immune gummies to soothing gel and powerful liquid drops, we offer a complete lineup for your family's well-being. It's not just protection. It's peace of mind, powered by science. Choose Canada Nano Silver, because your family deserves the best in natural immune support.
CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, the website is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Hello, everybody watching tonight, like Debbie watching from Winnipeg on Facebook, and Eddie is watching in Stonewall, Manitoba. Hello, Jason, watching tonight from somewhere in the 51st state. He's watching on Facebook. Derek's in Kamloops. Cheryl is watching tonight. Cheryl Lawrence. Hello, Giselle, watching this evening. Michelle is watching Alameda, not California. Hello, Claude on X, watching in Hearst, Ontario. Angela's watching in Toronto. Gloria is watching in Winnipeg. Hello, Cindy in Perth, Ontario. Joan is watching tonight, along with Jonathan on YouTube. Stephanie is watching from Delta, British Columbia. And over on Rumble, we've got Firestarter 2022. No, interesting you would have that name. Massive fire in Winnipeg today. They're calling it a grass fire, and I'm certain that climate change is to blame. Patricia0711, the world is watching. Vilma, Y. Pasco, Bulch, notable, all you cool cats on Rumble, whatever platform you happen to be watching on tonight, guys, don't forget to like and share. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can. This is incredibly important information we're going to be providing you tonight. This is something that happened at Universal Ostrich Farm earlier today, as posted by our buddy Jim Kerr on Facebook. Let's have a look here.
Privately about our harassment. Talk
100%.
about that,
Yeah,
because I think
for
that
sure.
should be addressed.
Well, we're going to adjust.
Thank you for coming out today.
No, hey, no, thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, no
Bring
problem.
biscuits.
Nice to meet you.
Dogs would love
Hey,
it.
thanks for signing it. Yeah, that was cool.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're waiting to see what happened here, this is ongoing complaints from a neighbor who has started all this, basically phoned the CFIA and done a whole bunch of things. And now what's happening is that because we are putting scopes out at the ends of the street and making sure that we've got cars there with people in them, she's now calling the cops on the people that are parked in their cars. She's saying that the cars are parked. They're not, because there's people in them. But yeah, now the cops are coming out. Now, this guy here is an RCMP officer who has he's been out here many, many times, even before I got here. They have a good relationship with the guy. The guy seems okay and all that, but he's still wearing a freaking sidearm, and there's not supposed to be any weapons on the property. So, you know, that's concerning me. But I'm not the boss here. I'm just reporting on it. The family knows what they want to do, and I'm gonna just support them in whatever it is that they choose to do. So. Anyway, we're waiting for a judgment. It's supposed to come out today. Well, early this week is what the judge said. So we're refreshing the thing and seeing if it's going to happen today, tomorrow. If it's Wednesday, then it'll be midweek. But they said early this week. So we're expecting it's going to either happen today or tomorrow, where we're going to get some kind of judgment. And yeah, that's where we're at.
All right, there's Jim. He's been doing a great job out there keeping everybody aware of what's going on at Universal Ostrich Farm. Katie Pasitney joins the show in exactly 30 seconds. We'll be right back. Hello, Katie. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Good to have you.
Yeah. Hi. Feels like forever. Feels like we're friends. I've only met you once.
I know, right? It's been a couple of months. Well, actually, when did you get that court ruling anyway? Was that beginning of February, mid-February?
January 31st, right before our February 1st call date.
Okay.
Right at the hair of the skin we squeezed in there.
Crazy. But what's been going on since then? Now, could you take us through that video that Jim posted a little earlier today? Because there's a lot of people who are unaware of exactly the day-to-day that's been happening at the ostrich farm for the past couple of months.
Has it ever been lots of anxiety and a lot of concern and worry because we're all trying to protect natural immunity. It's a thing. Our ostriches are absolutely happy and healthy. We are 118 days healthy, happy herd immunity animals that are doing absolutely great, laying eggs, dancing in the sunshine. We're 132 days under quarantine. So we're moving into 5 months here. That video.
Wait a minute. You're still under quarantine after all this time without any sickness or death?
You know what, Shadow? We are still being threatened 6 months in jail if we retest our own animals with the proper testing, which is not the controversial PCR testing. So we just want the chance to prove to the public and the world that we're not shedding the virus and we are not a risk, and we're still being threatened that after this many days.
Now, CFIA can impose that on you without any judicial prudence, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Can a judge remove that at all? Have you had, like, I mean, I'm unclear as to what you guys have been fighting, in the court for a while now.
So let's go back to our April 15th, 16th judicial review. And we were fighting two things, and that was our December 31st call date. We were battling that, saying it was undue and unjust, and for the purposes and reasons why. And we were battling the exemption package, which was extremely misleading and inappropriate for our farm. And they gave us an exemption package, which was an exemption package based on a commercial poultry facility, which we are not. It was based for a food consumption commercial poultry facility, which we are not. As well as we very outright told them we cannot answer these questions appropriately because we are not this exemption package. But they told us that if we didn't answer that exemption package properly, then we already failed. So we were fighting those two things on the judicial review of April 15th and 16th. And then that's what the verdict that we're awaiting was for a judge that we had Justice Batista at the very beginning. That's when I had met you. Yep. And Justice Batista, he gave us that ruling of the injunction and a stay order because he saw that this was going to cause irreparable harm and damage to two livelihoods, that they kind of picked through their own policy and decided what they wanted to use, which was the stamping out approach. They didn't approach us with vaccinations. They didn't approach us with the monitoring or burning out, which is the burning out approach on our farms is only used when they're understaffed. So when they're understaffed, we can use the appropriate method, which is allowing a virus to go through its course, and you have your survivors. But that's only when they're understaffed, which is a little bit alarming.
So they still, after all this time, they still want to come in there and mow all the birds down. And
sure do.
Have you had any this all sounds very bureaucratic to me. It all sounds to me like they're just following whatever ridiculous rules they have in place, and they're not considering any other options, and they're not looking at the humanity of the situation.
No.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a few, sorry, Shadow. Let's just paint a picture that 2001. So this stamping out approach was first initiated 2001, and we haven't looked back at the stamping out approach. So the stamping out approach is one size does not fit all. We are eradicating our farmers. We're putting our agricultural industry at risk. Our farmers are giving up, and not because they're weak, because they're tired. Who wants to have their animals called repopulate? Because as long as there's migratory birds in the world, we are never going to be avian influenza free. So our birds are still exposed to, and our animals are exposed to migratory birds. And then these farmers are finally just saying, you know what, I'm 57, 65. I don't want to do this anymore. So we're losing our farmers, which is our food security and the hardworking backbone of Canada that has provided us nutritional food supply for decades. And we're attacking them rather than using these organizations like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which our taxpayer dollars pay for. And we are not using these organizations to support our farmers, come up with better techniques, protect the survivors, give these farmers, just like ourselves, resources to heal that. Okay, you have an infected site. Let's test. Let's do a control group study, which is probably better. Let's use appropriate testing, which is probably better than a PCR test. And let's protect your farm. We're killing off genetic diversity and we're losing natural immunity, which will have a catastrophic impact on humanity.
Will the judge take into account that? How many days has it been again?
So 118 days, no deaths, symptomatic animals. We have our herd immunity, which herd immunity doesn't exist anymore, right? But when COVID-19 was happening, community immunity was a thing. But
right.
Yeah, and 132 days under quarantine.
So 132 days under quarantine, 118 days since any kind of incident whatsoever. Do you think the judge is going to take that into account? How did your case go? Were you able to argue that? I mean, and every day that passes, should be a good thing in your case.
So let's look. I didn't answer that question. I think you had a question for me about the judge so Justice Batista, who ruled in favor of us to give us the injunction, they attacked him right away with he erred in law, he erred in principle, and he overstepped his jurisdiction as a federal court judge. He got removed. We got a case management team put on us, and for our judicial review wait, hold on. What do you mean a case management team? Like from CFIA, or just an independent case manager? Department of Justice representing Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and then we had a judge flown in for our judicial review to Vancouver from Ottawa. So they flew in a judge from Ottawa to see our case. And again, I have hope. I wake up every morning with hope in my heart that the right thing and the people that are going to be put in the place to make change for all of us. But he got flown in from Ottawa and he heard our case. We were granted, we were going to do 50-50 time allot to be heard. We got 25% of the time and they took 75% of the time. And
wouldn't they have added an extra day to the case then?
They wouldn't. Yeah, no, they wouldn't. So again, let's just go back to, let's hope for public that, but that adds into the anxiety, obviously, that we're feeling at the farm from the video that you've seen tonight.
Yeah.
Video of RCMP show up. We're all on edge because we're trying to protect what's right. And then we're in this weird, unique situation where we're like, I've seen it over and over again when the UK in different situations where they just go and they lock out the gates and they lock out the farmers and you lose all rights to be in there with your animals and protect them. And as you know, I'm sure, Shadow, you're a smart man, that Canadian and all agricultural farmers are the experts in their industry. So we're an expert in ostrich. There's experts all over the world in cattle. There's experts in chickens and poultry. We are not consulting with our true experts. We are allowing organizations like Canadian Food Inspection Agency to make these decisions for us. And it's going to be if we don't look into the future, and they're not looking into the future, we're going to make one of the biggest mistakes since COVID-19.
You mentioned on several social media posts in the past couple of months about farmers in general, not just the ostrich farm, but definitely farmers. We're talking about cattle farmers. We're talking about pigs and sheep and whatever farmers we happen to have out there who are raising livestock of any kind. Mm-hmm. Have you managed to consult with any of these other folks, and are they going through the same kinds of things?
Yeah, we don't even have to go look for them. They're finding us now. They're scared. They are scared of the organization that they're supposed to be consulting with regarding infectious disease, because they know that we know as experts, you isolate the sick, you dispose of the dead properly, you heal them, and then you have herd immunity. Your younger are going to be healthier because you have mamas, and mamas that have herd immunity are going to develop that immunity, gets passed into your young. But we're eradicating everything, and it's really scary, because if we don't look into the future and we don't see that our diverse genetic diversity is being lost, that big pharma is going to win, right? Because if everything gets killed and animals outside pose a threat, because the migratory birds are allowed to keep surviving without there's being a middle ground. We have one side, which is Canadian Food Inspection Agency, one side, which is the wildlife. There's nothing in the middle, even though the wildlife is what's infecting our farmers. So we need something down the middle, but farmers are finding us. They're scared. We're trying to create an association, United Farmers Association. We're trying to give a safe place for people to fall back on. We're educating them with policy. We are educating them on start testing your animals. Keep a log. Like, if you don't want to cull them all, do it before Canadian Food Inspection Agency shows up at your door. Have all your own results. Have all of that before they threaten you 6 months in jail.
How many other farmers have been harassed by CFIA that you know of?
Many. Oh my gosh, it's across Canada and across the States is who we're getting contacted by. And I'm not going to name names because I know that they're scared. But it is multiple, and this should alarm people. We had one farmer, and this is how they work. I asked him, so he had like 70,000 animals killed. And I said, do you have your results? I said, do you have your lab results? No. Have you been paid out compensation? No. About all of his animals are gone. And so I was like, okay, can we get your lab results? Ask the Canadian Food Inspection Agency for your lab results. So the farmers are doing this because they're trusting these organizations that they have to, but they killed all their animals without even seeing proof that their animals had something. But let's go backwards again. You don't need a test. They don't need a test to kill all your animals. It's all they can come on based on suspicion to your property, kill all your animals, and you have nothing to do about it. You can't do anything.
It's interesting. I sent Katie a little story earlier today on Messenger, and I noticed this last night, and I was going to post a video about it, but I thought, no, I'm going to wait until tonight when Katie comes on the show. But I live by a creek. And there's a walking path next to this creek. And in this creek and just outside of this creek, there are, not going to say hundreds, but definitely dozens of wild geese who made a home there. And they interact with humans on a regular basis. They're walking the path. Humans are walking the path, riding their bikes down there. You get real close to these geese. Now, how are we to know that these geese aren't carrying the dreaded H5N1 avian flu, right? How does CFIA not know that? Well, we would have seen a dead bird. We would have had it reported. Somebody would have spotted it. Well, you want to know what? This is an area where you might not see that. A lot of high bulrushes, very long creek, a lot of deserted areas. So where are they with their shotguns, getting rid of all these geese from human contact, right? I mean, it just seems so arbitrary, and that makes me think this is a very disingenuous enterprise that these people are doing with Universal Ostrich Farm, because they're adamant. They are adamant that your farm and the ostriches on it pose a risk, even though everything is clear and there's no bird flu pandemic anyhow.
And just remember, they're not retesting. They haven't been here since February 26th. They're not retesting our animals. They have never done a water sample. They've never done a earth, like environmental soil sample. We are going off two controversial PCR tests ran over 30. I'm going to just say over 35 because I know that's for sure, but over 35 cycles. The farmer,
which means it could be anything over 35 cycles, and we learned that during COVID, didn't we?
The farmer that I said that he didn't even have his lab results yet It was PCR tests. It is the same thing every time. PCR tests ran at 39 cycles. And then they killed all his animals. So then like, where does this stop? Where does the, and education and awareness, we're just trying to just educate people. We've wanted to work with Canadian Food Inspection Agency from day one, offering them our H5N1 antibodies and a solution to bridging the wildlife and and our livestock. Came up with solutions and saying, let's use our antibodies to use fogging stations or eating stations for migratory birds to start treating the migratory birds that are the true spreaders of the disease or the virus. It's all fallen on deaf ears. It is extremely concerning. We are, again, just reminding your audience, we are isolated due to our geographical region, all in ourselves. So we're 135 kilometers away from a major city. We're flightless. We're under quarantine. And the appropriate people are going in and handling these animals. Another really cool tip is that I don't think I've been yet since I was on last time. We've all had our blood tested, just like me, and I'm not in with them. We're not under quarantine. It was quite the sight, Shadow. It was pretty funny. We're sitting at the table and we're taking our blood and we're sending it to a scientist, and came back positive for our strain of H5N1 of exposure, antibodies. So we have antibodies. None of us we have not fallen ill. We're not sick, but we need to start dispelling the fear-mongering, dispel the myth of the fear-mongering, because people get hospitalized all the time from just the regular flu, right? It's compromised people who are, and so we need to dispel the fear mongering. I'm not going to say that nobody will get hospitalized from H5N1. There will, for sure. Somebody's going to. But for the most part, I think we need to start putting science forward. The truth has to come forward, taking our farm as a living laboratory that we are, protecting all other farms out there and our food security. It's super important to us. It's not a one size fits all. Stamping out approach does not work for everybody. We're on our way for road to destruction. We did make it to legislature.
Yes, I want to talk to you about that, and also what happened last week regarding the dump in Edgewood or around. But to me, it doesn't. I know, right? It doesn't sound like CFIA is doing this for the public good. It sounds more like they're doing it to show you who's boss. And because you had the balls to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. They are absolutely trying to make an example. That's exactly what this is. I mean, you would have to be a moron not to see it any other way, because there is no danger emanating from Universal Ostrich Farm. So but before we talk about your trip to the ledge, and I know that was a very positive thing, what exactly happened with the dump in Edgewood? Like, were they contracted by CFIA?
Yeah. So as you know, our support has grown so immensely because people are starting to really understand that we're not save the ostriches only. I mean, some people in the beginning started it off with it's their pets and it's this and
400 pets, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been 30 years here with some of these animals. But so we have an amazing support network. We have ears on the ground and eyes on the sky. We have everybody just really caring about what we're standing up for. We had a lady come and she was fantastic. She came and said, you know what? I have to tell you, this is what I found out. She was shaken. She was sad. She knows it's wrong. But a contract, Udachinya landfill received a contract. They got the contract for our burial site for all of our ostrich carcasses. You know as well as I know that even the environmental impact that would have, this is not even allowed. Hazardous waste on our highways, biohazardous waste being just buried in, for animals to forage on or dig up. We're not consulting with our communities or our people or the people around these landfills. Some people are saying, yes, employees, yes, we got this. And then some are like, don't want to talk at all. And they don't want to go on camera. You can just tell almost there's almost an element of fear. from their position. But you remember too, these workers, these people who are just going there every day to do their job now are being put at risk, right? If we're spreading or we're driving around some awful, crazy virus that has potential to do such great harm, I mean, why are we putting our landfill workers that have no idea how to handle this at risk?
Because it's not about the
It's not a
virus.
risk.
And
It's not.
just that would be another great piece of evidence for a case if you were able to go back and argue it again, right?
Right.
So you do have that confirmed that actually happened, right? CFIA contracted the.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Then you think about it, you're like, how the arrogance? Then you think about, hey, the arrogance and that too. We don't have a verdict. So the arrogance that we're spending taxpayer dollars, we're spending, money to prepare for something that hasn't even happened yet is complete. It's ignorance. Yeah. Like
I'm just trying to piece this together logistically here. So 400 ostriches, and I'm not sure if you guys watching this understand how big ostriches can be. Not all of them are big, but I mean, just the picture that I used as a thumbnail tonight, you and the ostriches. How tall are you, Katie?
I'm 5'3".
Okay, you're 5'3". The ostriches, one of their heads was a good foot above yours.
They can be, extremely tall. But you know what? Another thing. So think about they're 300-pound animals. So imagine if you had almost 400, 300-pound animals piled in a dead pile, and these all got to go to a landfill. And
so how is that going to work? First of all, I mean, do you have any clue as to how CFIA was planning on coming in and murdering all these birds? Were they just going to shoot them, or?
Well, there's been leaked audio from the landfill, or not from the landfill. Sorry, there's been leaked audio from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that they were going to, possibly put square bales in the middle of our field and shoot them. And one of their visits, they outright asked us, if you were to humanely kill your animals, how would you do it? And we're like, we're going to tell you.
Well, first of all, let me think about that one, right? Like, really, honest to God, why would you ever think about that anyhow? But then, 400, 300-pound animals, what are they going to do? Take them in the back of a transport?
I think it works out to 46 tons of animal waste that we're dumping at Udachinya landfill.
And again, you're right. That's a biohazard as well.
Mm-hmm. It's a biohazard. And then I think I found out too, and I always like to be factual. But it has come down from the landfills that are DCK, that they can start accepting poultry carcasses. So I don't know where it became an okay thing. I mean, we've had a law for a long time. When you're hunting, you can't bring hunting animal waste to landfills. There's a strict thing about this with the spinal fluid, with certain things I do know, and I don't know where that just all got thrown out the wayside, but that is happening as well, and we need to dig up more concrete information about that. So if anybody on your show knows anything about the RDCK landfills and their bosses and the regulations that have been changed, please reach out to us, because the public has to know it's a public health safety risk if this is truly happening, and we have biohazard waste being dug around our communities, water, and environmental animals. It's a big concern for all of us.
This is supposed to be about the public health. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'm starting to laugh in such a serious and strenuous situation, but come on. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Do you know what? It's funny. We're laughing. We laugh a lot. And so many people will be like, how are you laughing? And we're like, it doesn't make sense. We're like, nothing makes sense here. How can you could cry every day, or you could just laugh, because how does it make sense? We're
living in this topsy-turvy world. I've also seen video of many trucks, many campers parked around the farm. You still have that crew of folks there daily?
Yeah, we do. We have an amazing, it's like our ostrich family. Some people come, they go. Some people have given up their work, their everything. They're like, no, we're staying. We do want more people here, though, please, especially through the time we're going into. If out of your audience, anybody that wants to come to 301 Langille Road, Langille Road, and wants to come and support us, even if it's a day, or you want to camp up and you want to just come and be self-sufficient, it would be fantastic. Peaceful, loving, kind. We're so quiet. We have a fire. Everybody feeds each other food and takes care of one another. We have a really, really big opportunity to create amazing change and opportunity in such a shitty time. Sorry. So sorry. I was such a farm girl.
I understand completely. So you've got this is horrible language.
I apologize.
Do the folks around there, do they all have jobs? Are you giving them all jobs? Like just walk the perimeter, make sure there's no seedy looking characters?
Shadow, so you didn't hear this either. We had one of our hens in the middle of the night shot in the head with a 22 in execution style. She was sleeping. She was 12 years old, big, beautiful hen, 300 pounds. And somebody came out in the middle of the night and shot her. So ever since then, we have an amazing team here of family now that we do night watch. They sit up all night. We take different corners of the road and we just watch. We've caught a bunch of group of younger teenagers coming down with headlamps the road, caught them. There was some gentleman or person in their car came down revving their engine up and down our road, caught, just we're stopping this ridiculous, crazy behavior in a time when we are trying to fight for food and research that can help like protect your food.
Yeah. So I know what small towns can be like. People talk.
Yeah.
Does anybody know who might have been the one who shot the hen?
No, there's an ongoing investigation.
But nobody is talking about it that you've heard so far, at least in town, in Edgewood. I mean, how many people live in Edgewood?
I think last time I checked on Google, 600.
600. So, yeah. So this is like everybody knows everybody. Somebody knows what's happened. All you got to do is probably walk into the local bar one night and the guy will be bragging about it after too many beers or whiskeys.
We don't have a local bar. We're so small. There's no local bar.
There's got to be some local gathering spot somewhere where there's the guy with the rifle is probably going, I'm the one that shot the ostrich, right? Because that's just, he wants to be a hero.
The ostrich farm has become the spot, which is good.
The gathering spot, yeah. So you have all kinds of local support, but there are a few dangerous types out there still, I'm going to assume, yeah?
Yeah, it is. We just, we've been blessed with such a great core of people here, but there's a lot of people who are just, unpredictable. And it's, it's lack of education. They're going against the fear mongering. They're listening to people's gossip or whatever it is. But if they actually understood, and if you have a question, call us at the farm, email us at the farm, and we will dispel your myths. We'll help you. We'll help educate you, because, we haven't made it this far by being silly. We know what we're doing, and we're trying to do it right, and we're trying to go about it by the law. But right now, I think education is preparedness for sure.
How's your mom doing?
She's tired. We're all tired. But the cool thing about us, we're a family that has always grown up. We love hard. We fight hard. We've grown up on the farm for our whole life. So this time you're kind of almost running off adrenaline, because every day you wake up, your feet hit the ground. You don't know what's going to happen. And it's like playing the biggest game of chess we've ever made or played. You don't know what strategic move you need to make the next day, who's making the next move, what's happening. So given that, I think when this is all said and done, I'll get in, but it's not going to be done. But if the ostriches are safe for a substantial amount of time, I think I could see us really needing a letdown.
No kidding. This has gotten worldwide, Katie, and I know that you know that.
I'm happy about it, and I thank you, and I thank everybody, because it is a global problem.
RFK Jr. even talked about it, I believe, and it's been on a lot of the American online media. I think it's even made it to Europe. I think Jim Ferguson on Freedom Train International was talking about it. So, yeah, you are getting the word out, because I believe that the same kinds of things are happening to other farmers in different parts of the world. And so because it was getting noise, and not just from the left-wing corporate media, and even the left-wing corporate media obviously is going to paint a different picture completely than what we're talking about here. It's made its way to the BC legislature, and you do have a few MLAs who are taking up your part. How was your trip out there? And it must have been like, I'm thinking, okay, so you're in Edgewood. That's what, like a 6-hour drive to get to Vancouver just to get to the ferry. And then you got to get on the ferry and go to Victoria. Like that's a long day for you.
We booked her. Actually, no, and we didn't drive. We flew.
Okay.
We drove to Kelowna. Barely missed her. We almost missed her flight, kind of in a way. I thought I ended up with a 20-minute grace period. That was good. Flew to Victoria. We had an amazing experience. I want to do a shout out to Jordan Keeley, the MLA out of Northern Peace River. He gave up his question period time, which he gets question period time once every 3 weeks. And he gave it for the farm because he's a farmer himself. And this hits close to home. And he sees, by learning about what's happened here, he sees where we're going. And so he stood up for us. It was a very emotional experience for me personally, sitting in the galley in the legislature building, watching the power that just sat below me in suits. And, both sides, and going, holy, like these are the people, this is all the people that make these decisions that are outright, just they affect all of our lives so much. We had Minister of Agriculture responded to Jordan Keeley's questions for question period. Then we were granted, she asked for a meeting with us afterwards. We had a meeting with Lana Poppin, the Minister of Agriculture, Samuel Godfrey, and our MLA, Steve Morset, afterwards. We had 15 minutes with them. I brought up a couple items about because she mentioned the testing, and they test and they do all these good things. But I said, you mean the controversial PCR tests? Or do you mean that they don't even need tests to come on your property and kill animals? Or, and I think that one of the biggest failures and the gaps in all that's going on is that they're not looking into the future, just like they didn't with COVID. So, if we're going to eradicate all our farmers, and our farmers are getting tired and they're giving up, then it's just like what happened in COVID-19. Our once heroes, which were our truck drivers and our nurses and our doctors, became the outcasts. And so what do? Our farmers now, who were once the pioneers in giving nutritional food, giving up their life to farm for nutritional food for us, are they going to become the next burden on society because they're not following through with compliance, and they're not, or they're just giving up? And then what do they do after they're in their 60s or 50s? Like, there's a lot of them are just saying, what do we do now that we've been farmers our whole life and now we don't want to repopulate? Do we lean on government assistance? What do we do with the rest of our life? So I said, well, to her,
that is the plan, actually, if you look at it, and I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Yeah,
they want the farmers moving into the cities and government assistance, CBI. Yeah,
we're corralling our everybody. We're corralling them slowly this way, cinching us into the 15-minute cities that we have the control over. And I don't know how far I can go with this, but you look outwards and you go, then we're going to have our vaccinations, in which our families and food, which we're solely relying on the government to provide us with their factory-based meat. And it's going to become an elite thing. Who deserves their food? Who gets their vaccinations? And how much do you have to pay for your vaccinations to survive? Because if we get rid of natural immunity and herd immunity in our animals, we will need to survive off vaccinations. There's nothing, we're not eating nature. We're not eating that immunity anymore. We're not getting our antibodies. And so we will be solely reliant on our annual vaccination for survival. Sorry, that's my take on it. That was my 5 bottles of red pills I've eaten in the 5 months.
Well, I'm glad you're all caught up.
I started out like this, and now I'm like, oh.
Oh, really? That's great. I'm glad that you're all caught up now, because most of us are going, yeah, this is exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm feeling caught up. I've got a lot more to learn.
Do you feel as though meeting with these provincial government representatives was going to be helpful at all? Because CFIA, after all, is a federal agency.
Yeah, they asked that question. Canadian Press asked that question. I said, they were like, why are you here if on the provincial level if it's a federal level? And I was like, well, isn't BC in Canada? Like, I don't know. Last time I checked that, we're still part of Canada. And if we're not, asking the right questions at any level should be important.
What's interesting? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in Saskatchewan, this came out a couple of years ago. There were federal officials, and this had to do with water and local land use. And these federal officials were just kind of worming their way onto private lands to take tests and samples, whatever they were doing. And so one of the owners of the properties went to the government and said, hey, at the Saskatchewan government, and said, hey, what's going on here? Scott Moe found out that, in fact, there were federal government agents who were coming onto private lands doing water testing and whatnot. And he said, well, that's a crime. And if we catch you, we're going to arrest you. So I'm wondering if the BC government would be willing to do the same thing here, and if they have the power to do that. That might be interesting.
It's a really good point. Maybe you could message me after too. I'd like to keep that, because every piece of hope, we hold on to it and we chase it. We're not, and that's what's, we're still here. I really do appreciate the time at the legislature, because it gave me an eye opener too. But it also, it stimulated more conversation. Some people are, they don't understand how much I just want to take on everything, because I just went, even if 2 more people here tonight, if it was just 2 that knew about this, it's 2 more people that were just trying to educate and be aware of what the situation is here and how the impact that it has on all of us and the catastrophic failure in our system that it will have if we lose our nutritional food source.
Let me ask you a question, and this is going to be personal. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Sure.
But before all of this happened, who were you? And I know that you always have been linked to the Universal Ostrich Farm, and I know that you grew up with these animals. We talked about that last time. But what did you do before all this? And I've got a follow-up for that as well, by the way.
Okay. So we had fires that came through here as well. I'm sure you're aware of. And they were evacuation ordering everybody out of here just quite a few, not that long ago. And my mom was like, we said, we can't leave the animals. They don't know how to treat, they don't know how to feed these animals. They don't know how to care for them. And so we said, we're staying. So we took the stance of staying, and I just made it through the barricade with my tray and food and gas and everything. And back then we were on national news because we stayed behind for our animals, but we were feeding we were offering food for the community's animals. After that, I went on to raise food for Kelowna's fires. And I raised by myself 100,000 pounds of domestic and livestock food, drove it across the Okanagan Valley. I fed all the farms that were staying through evacuation order and out of evacuation order. I always joke that I think the government is like, their daughter just keeps coming home. But before that, I have a family. I have a few boys. I was a mom. I am a mom. I'm a very proud mother.
Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We owned a coffee shop. I ran a coffee shop. I've written a couple books, crazy enough, about the power of gratitude and affirmations for children. I guess I've just kind of been always an entrepreneur, but I grew up here. My biggest passion, as you can tell, is this farm. It's been a big part of my life. It's been the biggest part of my life. I've grown up with these animals that are in their 30s. I'm 43. I should never have given out my age, but I'm 43. And I love these animals are my life. And I see how much joy and passion it brings my mother. And she always told us, I think I said this on your last show, she said, these animals are going to do something amazing for humanity one day. And we're like, okay.
And that is a thing. You are working with a doctor over in Japan, I believe.
Yes.
With the antibodies, and we talked about that last time. And the reason I asked that question to you, Katie, is because no matter what happens with the court ruling, whenever it comes out tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever,
Yes.
Is this going to be your new thing? I mean, because you are very passionate about protecting these farms and about finding a way to wrangle CFIA, so they haven't got this kind of power over people. And it seems to me that your focus is now just on getting the word out to as many people as possible so that they're aware and they know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. It has turned into my new life mission. I think it's going to be able to speak on these causes, protect our small farmers, work with the commercial poultry, the associations that are larger. Try and bridge those gaps, bring these people together, but have a stability in our food source, have a stability with our farmers, and make them that before they become the burden, make them the biggest heroes that our health care workers are, our truck drivers are. And let's not make that mistake again here. And we're going to stop it before it happens. So it is. I have a passion. I have a big passion.
Do you have allies?
Do I have? Yes. Yes.
And I know you don't want to name names, and we talked about this before, but I'm talking about people who are willing to stand up with you, because this can be an awfully lonely thing doing it by yourself.
Solid people. We have. So Jim Kerr from the Bubble Bus has given up. He had a ticket back. And then he was like, I can't leave. How do I leave when there's no verdict? He's been by our side, taking tons of live video. We have Sarah Bankert. She's day one. She's been here from the Kelowna Resistance, videoing, standing up, making sure the message gets heard. Lots of love. We have, just so many kind people. We have our scientific team that are willing to stand behind us by Guelph University, is Dr. Pellick from University of British Columbia, Byron Bridle. We have a lot of people willing to stand with us. And I think we just need to keep pushing forward and create this amazing dynamic that we have. And we can make a lot of change. Universal Ostrich Farm stands for using this most challenging time to make the largest opportunity to protect others.
If this does happen, where they come out and they cull the birds, are you planning on being there for that, or are you going to be off-site?
No, absolutely. We will be here. We will video. I said the world is watching. And if the world, if that happens and it goes that way, the world, whoever wants to, and I mean this, I'm sorry, but because I would not be the one that would be able to watch it, but I will show the world that each animal getting killed, because this is not unnecessary. It is animal cruelty, because they were healthy animals under the Health and Animals Act. You do not do this. We are, and then our animals' deaths would fight for tooth and nail to use this to protect every farm out there. So yeah, we would film it. I'm going to stay. I know all of us are going to stay. They'd have to pull us out of here.
That would be a heartbreaking, and I can't even call it a moment, because it wouldn't be a moment for 400 of them. It would go on for hours, probably.
They are not replaceable. You have to remember the decades of genetics that are here, the environmental challenges that each unique immune system has faced and fought off. It could just be as simple as their own cold. But they're okay with our farms killing all of our animals and our genetic diversity off, and then repopulating with really small, young animals that have no immune systems, which allows these viruses to have more of a habitat, or like an environment to mutate on. So we're doing everything wrong. The science is clear. The culling is not working. By wiping out our natural immunity, that has been our most powerful system for forever. Nature's most powerful defense system. We are setting ourselves up for catastrophic failure.
So, when this ruling does come, what is it like? If it's in your favor, what does that mean? Is it just another delay, or is it a final decision?
No, it's just another, to us, it's another delay in appeal. We will have an appeal ready. We will be ready to take that on. You have to remember too, they have so much power shadow that they can just come on and say that they're working in the best interest of public health and safety, and they could come on tonight. it wouldn't look very good on them, right? So
Yeah.
these organizations have way too much power with no accountability, and we have to start creating some. And that's what we're trying to do here. There's accountability, and they have to start looking into the future. And they're not, these people that are being put in these positions, they are not, they are lacking the education in the areas that they're in. They need to start really going to the experts, which is the farmer. We need to start putting some faith in the people that have raised these animals for the years that they have. And there's no accountability, and that is scary. You don't have organizations that have that much power with no accountability. They don't even show up on site for the culling. These are they hire third-party contractors, vendors to come and do the killing. Canadian Food Inspection Agency and 3 of the farms that I've spoke to, they are not present for the culling.
So then they go out, just hire murderers? Like,
yeah, it's a good word for them, because if you don't have any expertise with these animals that you're killing, how you're just going out there, and it's wrong. It's all wrong. And they're handling infectious disease. Are these vendors actually qualified? Has anybody checked to see if these vendors are even qualified to handle the disease and shoot the animals and be present on the properties that they're on? Like, we're not, we're not.
You would think that they've already handed this job off to somebody because of the arrogance that we pointed out earlier in the show, right? They've already contracted
that. Does anybody want to leak the vendor that's been hired to? I'm sure
that might be interesting. It probably wouldn't be somebody local though, but maybe, with all the viewers that we've got here, maybe we can get a hold of Katie. You're findable on Facebook, and the name is spelled just like it is at the bottom of the screen, you guys. Katie, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, and on behalf of all of the viewers of this show,
thank you.
Want to wish you like the biggest, huge, largest hug that virtual hug that we could ever give.
Thank you.
I love
you.
We are all rooting for you. We love you too. And if there's
come and visit 301 Landfill Road. Come and give lots of support, lots of love. SaveOurOstriches.com, Universal Ostrich Farm.com. Come and support us, and let's protect one another. I love you.
I love you too. All right. Then when something happens, please let us know, okay?
Sounds good. You better believe it. You'll be one of my first to know.
All right. Thanks, Katie. Bye. Hey, we've got more show, just so you guys know. I didn't want you to think that the show is over. It's not. We've got some actual news to get through tonight, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Starting with a fire that happened in Winnipeg today. Firefighters battling a large blaze, North Transcona Industrial Zone. They're calling it a grass fire. And I'm sure that we're maybe minutes away now from somebody saying it was climate change is what caused the fire. Now, this area, like they say here in the Winnipeg Sun, is a large industrial area. As a matter of fact, there's a rail yard up there. It's been there for 70 years. It's called Symington Yard. And I know people who have worked there for many, many years, including an engineer who said to me that if a fire in this area ever happened, it could burn forever simply because the diesel fuel that has been in the ground for the last 70 years, it's seeped right into the ground, goes 20 feet deep, maybe more. So this fire could be burning for quite some time, and it might be very difficult to put out. Here's a little video. So that's what it looked like. And it was pluming all over the city. So big fire, grass fire, probably still burning. It had been burning at about 7 o'clock tonight Central Time for about 5 hours. So that's kind of crazy. Tomorrow night on the show, Jeff Rath You guys remember Jeff Rath? He's with the Alberta Prosperity Project. He's going to be joining the show. He's also what I would consider to be the authority on First Nations and Indigenous groups, at least in Alberta. And he's been fighting for Indigenous rights legally for the past 30 years. Jeff is a lawyer, and he is also a big believer in Alberta sovereignty. And he has come up with a question, a referendum question. We'll be talking more about this tomorrow night, and also exactly what the First Nation stance on all of this is, because it seems, at least in the past week, they've been telling Danielle Smith to get off their land. Do the treaties still apply? Do the treaties give the First Nations people some sort of veto power over Alberta separating from Canada? I would suggest no, but we're going to hear about it from the authority, Jeff Rath of the Alberta Prosperity Project, tomorrow night from the CBC. Separatists. They're going to use the word separatists, right? Separatists release potential Alberta referendum question. Expect Danielle Smith to join the cause. The Alberta Prosperity Project says the Premier should hold a referendum in 2025 with UCP base heavily pro-secession. Very interesting. They want it this year, and that's what Jeff said on the show last time he was on. We've heard that Danielle Smith, if they can get enough people to sign the petition next week, you know, when they talk about separatism in Quebec, they joke around with Yves Francois Blanchette of the Bloc Québécois. It's funny. It's cute. Look at the Quebecers. They want to leave. Oh, my God. They're so adorable. But Alberta, they're like monsters. So the APP released a referendum question today on independence from Canada that it will petition to get in front of provincial voters, but only once it's garnered support from 600,000 Albertans. Well, okay, so Bill 54 that was introduced last week, I think, or maybe the week before by Danielle Smith and the UCP government is going to significantly reduce that number. So again, the CBC is trying to suppress the idea of Alberta sovereignty amongst Albertans, right? That's more than triple the number of signatures the Alberta Prosperity Project would need under a new united Conservative Party government bill that makes it much easier to force a referendum on the ballot. The group also said it would push Danielle Smith to allow a separation referendum later in 2025 instead of next year, as she suggested. They said a critical mass of separatist UCP members can persuade the Premier to fast-track the referendum and to join their cause as well. The UCP did a little bit of a press conference today. They're still standing up to the federal government. Rebecca Schultz, I believe her name is. She's the Minister of Environment in Alberta. She and Danielle Smith held a press conference today, and here's a clip of that.
How industry felt about what's working well and what presents a challenge. Certainly, concerns were raised about the impacts of a carbon price reaching over $100 per ton. That is why, effective immediately, we're freezing the industrial carbon price. This will provide a stable, predictable, and effective environment for companies to operate and remain competitive. It will also benefit sectors across the economy, including agriculture, forestry, and manufacturing, helping reduce costs, grow industries, and of course, keep Albertans working. We're keeping Alberta competitive, standing up for our workers, our industries, and our economy. We are absolutely a leader when it comes to energy and resource development, but also when it comes to emissions reduction. This is our jurisdiction, not Ottawa's. And if the federal government wants to work together to keep our economy strong, respect the Constitution, and do the right thing for the environment, they can follow the path forward that has been outlined by the Premier over the last couple of weeks.
So while they still bend a little bit when they say, well, we're a leader in emissions reduction, they're not going to increase the carbon tax that the federal government insists they do. In other words, they're jamming their thumb in the eye of Mark Carney. I don't know if this is a ploy to force him to the table to negotiate on the 10 points that Danielle Smith has repeatedly brought up, the conditions required for Alberta to, she doesn't go as far as say separate. She continues to say national unity crisis, which is what's already going on. Interesting some of the articles coming out of Ontario and all of the big left-wing corporate media publications, they're laughing at Alberta yet again. They're laughing at the West yet again. And what I would suggest is that if you don't think that you're going to get this passed in Alberta, if the support is only 30 or 35% in favor of leaving Canada and becoming a sovereign nation, make sure, if you live in Alberta, again, make sure that your buddies who may not agree with you regarding separation read the odd article from the Toronto Star or the Globe and Mail, or watch the CBC when they start talking about separation, because that will anger them enough to actually go ahead and join the sovereignty movement, just to see how they're laughed at. Alberta's not the economic engine of Canada. Oil and gas, energy is not a big factor in the economy of Canada. That's what they're actually saying. That's what they actually have the gall to say, even though it is the number one thing that drives the economy. Even now, under the conditions the Liberals have laid down for the last 10 years. And without Alberta, Canada's screwed. If you want to talk about have-not provinces, well, Ontario is one. They receive money from equalization. Not as much as Quebec, but they still take about $1 billion. Quebec takes $13 or $14 billion from equalization. But they're saying that those two provinces are the ones that control the economy of the country. Well, it makes sense. They're saying that together, Ontario and Quebec control 57% of Canada's economy, even though they have over 2/3 of the population. So obviously, both of those provinces are nanny states, or they've become that way. They should be able to match the economic output with the population. It should be the same. If the population of Quebec and Ontario combined is 2/3 that of Canada, then they should be controlling 2/3 of the economy, and they're not. So Alberta punches high above its weight. Now, there's been a lot of talk about recounts from the election last week. Was it last week or was it the week before? I think it was the week before. And there are four. Well, there was one that was decided today by one vote. One vote. The Liberals beat the Bloc Québécois in Quebec by one vote. There's three others that are ongoing right now. And people are yelling and screaming about cheating and how the Liberals managed to steal a majority. Well, first of all, they're not going to win a majority. Even if they somehow manage to wind up on top in all three of these recounts, they still will not have a majority government. It's not going to happen. Now, if they combine with the NDP 7 seats, they will. But it sounds like the NDP is not interested in forming any kind of an alliance or a coalition with Mark Carney's Liberals, at least right now. And by the way, Carney is going to be announcing his cabinet tomorrow. And he says, yes, it's going to be gender equal. So 50% women, 50% men. Mark, I have a question for you right now. What is a woman? What is a judicial recount, and could it leave the Liberals with a majority government? This is from the National Post. An Elections Canada judicial recount flipped a riding back to the Liberals over the weekend, but the results are of three more recounts yet to be completed will not give Carney and his party the 172 seats needed for a majority government. In fact, the Liberals could lose 2 seats to the Conservatives and drop to 168. That's the seat count if the count doesn't go their way. So they're defending 2 of these seats that are being recounted right now. The Liberals won them before the recount, and they're trying to catch the Conservatives in the other. That's the one in, I think it's in Windsor. So what's a judicial recount? Well, they go ahead and count the ballots with a judge in the room. That's exactly what it is. And once the result is certified by that judge, the decision becomes final. The returning officer for a federal electoral district is required to request a judicial recount when the margin of victory is less than 1/1000th of all votes cast. Such was the case in the Quebec riding of Terrebonne, which Liberal candidate Tatiane Auguste won by 1 vote. My vote doesn't matter. 1 vote after a judicial recount was completed on Saturday. So there's, like I say, there are 3 other recounts that are going on. Even narrower margins than Terrebonne separate the current Liberal winners from their Conservative opponents in 2 of the 3 remaining recounts. The process began Monday morning for Terra Nova, the Peninsulars in Newfoundland, which newcomer and former CBC journalist Anthony Germain is clinging to by a mere 12 votes ahead of the Tory, Jonathan Rowe. And what are the others here? A recount for Ontario's Milton East Halton Hill starts tomorrow in Milton. Preliminary election night results awarded the riding to the Conservatives' Parm Gill by almost 300 votes, but became a win by 29 ballots for the Liberals after the results were validated. What? So that could be a flip to the Conservatives. Rejected ballots numbered 412. And the last recount won't begin until Tuesday the 20th, 6 days before Parliament is set to reopen by King Charles, and was granted after Irek Kuzmarek successfully argued that some of the 537 rejected ballots in the Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore riding should have been considered because the voters' intention was clear. But if they don't do it properly, then it doesn't count. Irek, that's the point. According to the Windsor Star, one example cited by lawyer Jeff Hewitt was a ballot marked with an X for Kuzmarek, but also had the words, Irek did a good job in the margins. It's not allowed. Preliminary figures had the CPC's Kathy Borelli finishing 233 ballots ahead, but Kuzmarek said Elections Canada later found 4 errors in how Win polling stations reported their final tallies, which reduced the margin to 77, leaving him 7 shy. So if they've already done 1 recount and they do another one, do you think the Liberals can get another 78? Swing another 78 ballots so he wins? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But the other 2, the Conservatives could get 2 seats back. You never know. Bank of Canada is going to start cutting rates again as jobs blow from tariffs materializes, economists say. So apparently, Canada lost 22,000 or 27,000 private jobs. Let's go ahead and read the story because it's very fascinating. They added government jobs through the election period, and that's what they're saying is buoying the economy right now. The unemployment rate rose to 6.9% last month, and they're saying here in the Financial Post that Donald Trump had his fingerprints all over it. This is according to Statistics Canada, obviously. And the estimate was only 6.8%. So the real rate was 6.9%. The economy only generated 7,400 new positions, slightly higher than estimates for 5,000 new jobs. Something of a turnaround from March when the economy lost 32,600 positions, but economists believe hiring related to the federal election prevented the net change in April from falling into negative territory as sectors including manufacturing, retail, wholesale all recorded large declines in employment. And they're saying that it's because of Donald Trump's tariffs. It's not because of Donald Trump's tariffs. It's because of the counter tariffs. That's the problem. But we need to keep our elbows up and fight back against the largest economy in the world. Yeah, that makes sense. And at the same time, hey, let's go ahead and cozy up to the communist Chinese. Vashi Capellos, who everybody seems to love, all of the independent broadcasters on YouTube seem, oh, look, Vashi just, smoked this guy. No. She had the Chinese ambassador to Canada on to spout rhetoric and propaganda just today. And here's a clip of that.
Canadians trust China to do more business with.
China and Canada conducting practical cooperation. We have a profound historical foundation, great complementarities, and we have actual needs for those practical cooperation. Because of a reason that everybody knows about, China-Canada relationship suffered setbacks in the past few years. And the causes of the event and also the merits of the case are very clear. But China now is ready to move on and look ahead. We are ready to work together with Canada to bring our relationship back onto the right track. But for that to happen, our relationship should be founded on the right basis. First of all, China and Canada should have a correct perception of each other. China always regards Canada as our partner, and we hope that Canada can also regard China as a partner. Second, mutual respect is important. And we should respect each other on the issues concerning each other's core interests. Mutual respect is a very important principle if one wants to have a relationship with another. And that also applies to state-to-state relations as well. And another thing for China and Canada to bring our relationship back onto the right track is that we need to seek common ground while reserving differences in a constructive way. China and Canada have a lot of differences, and this is very, very normal. Because we are different in history, we are different in culture, and we are different in political systems, and many other factors. But one very important goal of two countries to develop a relationship is to serve the interests of the people of the two countries. Whether China has interfered in Canada's internal affairs and whether China is a security threat to China, I have made China's position very clearly multiple times, and I am ready to share it with you here today as well. I can say it very clearly to you that China has never and does not have any interest in interfering in Canada's internal affairs.
He's lying. There's obvious evidence of China interfering in our internal affairs. So what was the point in having the Chinese ambassador to Canada, who, by the way, doesn't speak English or French, speaks Chinese, speaks Mandarin? Obviously, that was all through a translator. That's how much they think of our country, that they send an ambassador to this country who can't even speak the language. They want Canada. And right now, they're scared that Trump is going to take it over because they've been working on Canada for decades. And they're scared they're going to lose it. They're scared. Why else would the Chinese ambassador to Canada be on Vashi Capello's CTV news program? Interesting, isn't it? I have a couple more things before we get to the extension on shadowdavis.com tonight. And tonight it's going to be how to spot a psy-op from a behavioral analyst. I thought that was kind of interesting. Donald Trump, according to AA.com, has cut ties with Benjamin Netanyahu, the PM of Israel, over manipulation concerns. According to a report, Israeli Army Radio says Trump has cut off direct contact with Netanyahu amid growing bilateral tensions. In other words, stop telling us what to do. This is very interesting, and members of the website, the Nighthawks, the all-access Nighthawks at shadowdavis.com know exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe you do too, although I can't say it on the social media streams. Donald Trump has decided to cut off direct contact with Benjamin Netanyahu, a report said last week, Thursday. Yanir Kozin, a correspondent for Israeli Army Radio, said in a post on his X that Trump made the decision after close associates told Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer the president believes that Netanyahu is manipulating him. Wow. Wow. An Israeli official added that Dermer's tone during recent discussions with senior Republican figures about what Trump should do was seen as arrogant and unhelpful. The official said that people around Trump told him that Netanyahu was manipulating him. There's nothing Trump hates more than being portrayed as a fool or someone being played. That's why he's decided to cut contact with Netanyahu. That, my friends, is a very, very, very large thing. Huge. And you also know that Donald Trump was talking about, he's musing about it. He hasn't actually done anything about this yet. And maybe tariffs are the first step. Talking about getting rid of income tax in the United States, getting rid of it completely because they'd be making so much money from the tariffs that they wouldn't need that income from income tax. And Ron DeSantis down in Florida wants to get rid of property tax. Listen to him talk about it.
You should own your property free and clear. I think to say that someone that's been in their house for 35 years just has to keep ponying up money that is not, you don't own your home if that's the case. So yes, of course, I'd like to see people be able to owe free and clear. And it's interesting because it's like if I go to Best Buy and buy a flat screen TV and put it on the wall, I got to pay a sales tax on it, right? But I don't keep paying tax on it every year. I mean, it's just not. That's not how we do things. It's like, okay, if you're going to tax something, you tax it at the transaction, and then let people actually enjoy their private property free and clear of the government. So that, I think, is the vision. That's the philosophical insight. And if you think about our founding fathers, when they were proposing the Constitution, in one of the Federalist Papers, I think it was Hamilton, he's writing about, because, there was opposition to the Constitution. They were making a more powerful federal government than under the Articles of Confederation, and people worried about taxation. And they didn't have, obviously, a 16th Amendment, which eventually came on income tax, but basically you were not effectively allowed to do any direct taxation. It had to be indirect, meaning you couldn't just, you could theoretically just apply like a tax on land federally, but it'd have to be a portion among the states, so practically it could never work. So basically, Hamilton's saying, look, the indirect taxes are the most effective, efficient way to raise revenue for the government, because they basically allow the individual to choose how much tax they want to pay based on how much they're consuming. And there's a security, there's a protection against excessive tax in that regard, because if the government raises consumption tax too much, it kills the golden goose, because then it causes people to stop.
I know he's blathering and rambling a little bit here, but it is very interesting listening to a governor, an elected governor of a U.S. state, talk about getting rid of property taxes, right?
Purchasing as much. But he said taxing property is one of the worst forms of taxation, because people don't have a choice in the matter, and you're just basically drilling these folks over and over again on tax. And so it's an issue that I think's pinched a lot of people, but philosophically, it was not the way that that the federal government was constructed. Now, I understand local, there was a history of it, and that's kind of been the norm. But man, you talk about family of four having the median home price that is purchased in Florida. That's a pretty hefty tax bill right there when you come in after buying a home. When you consider what the average income is throughout the United States of America, the math just doesn't add up. And I think that's why people want relief.
Isn't that interesting? As people rail about, we'll never be the 51st, never 51, Canada all the way. By the way, Mark Carney wants to invest another, what is it, 25 billion, 75 billion, which means taxes are absolutely going to go up. The carbon tax is never going to go anywhere. Even if it's hidden, it's still going to be there. There was no talk at all about taxes going down from the Liberals during the election campaign, and yet somehow they managed to win. But in the meantime, you've got the president of the United States talking about getting rid of income tax, and you've got the governor of one of the largest states in the union talking about getting rid of property tax. Now, I ask you again, why would you be opposed to becoming a 51st state? Now, there's no way that the entire country of Canada could ever become at once the 51st state. All of the provinces would have to separate from Confederation. Confederation would dissolve, and then the separate provinces would decide what it is they want to do. Do they want to form a new federation? Do they want to go at their own? Do they want to join the United States? Do they want to join China? That's how it definitely would play out. A couple of European things here from our friend Christine Anderson, German MEP in the European Parliament. She says, oops, wait a minute. Well, I had this up here. There's going to be a European COVID Commission. Did we have that right at the top? Here it is. Right. Finally, the official EU Corona Committee is coming. Christine says, one of my central objectives in my work in the EU Parliament is finally becoming a reality. Now the official investigation into the unspeakable corona policy will begin. which with its draconian and even totalitarian measures have severely weakened our society, extremely damaged citizens' trust in politics, and at the same time plunged many people into absolute despair and physically harmed or even killed them by means of experimental injections. It's been officially confirmed, the request to establish a committee of inquiry into the EU Commission vaccines contracts, in particular the controversial Pfizer deals under Ursula von der Leyen, has reached the required 180 supporters in the European Parliament. The request, titled Track Transparency and Accountability, will now be submitted. This is actually great news, because if the European Union is going to investigate it, then maybe, like the Americans are already, but maybe something happens over here. I know that you're probably going to say, don't hold your breath, man, after a statement like that, but you never know. Did I tell you guys last week that the UK and the US have reached a trade deal that was very, very, very favorable for the US and not so much for the United Kingdom? And I'm wondering what's all in there. I haven't had a look at all of it. And maybe there's some things that are just spoken handshake deals as opposed to what's on paper in terms of trade. Like Donald Trump suggesting to Keir Starmer that, you know, if you don't get rid of these ridiculous censorship laws, we're not going to do a deal. If you don't start really cutting down on immigration, then we're not going to have a deal. And so today, the Prime Minister of the UK announces that they will get tough on immigration. And they've doubled the UK citizenship wait time. Here is Keir Starmer talking about it.
Becoming an island of strangers that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly.
Why the sudden turnaround? This guy's been in power almost a year and has done absolutely nothing about it. And anybody who speaks up about it online gets thrown in jail. But now, miraculously, after this new deal between the UK and the US gets signed, he is suddenly wanting to reduce immigration drastically. All right. Canada hasn't done a deal with the US yet. I wonder what that's going to be like. Look at Mark. Here's the way it's going to go. No more censorship and cut down on your immigration and get rid of the Chinese influence, or the tariffs are not coming down. As a matter of fact, they'll go up. Now, I totally understand that many of you guys watching the show right now have got patriotic feels for Canada and that maple leaf flag flying in the wind. This is the country that we were born and raised in, and we should be more patriotic. But over the last 5 years, we've seen this country come apart at the seams. Not the people, the government, the institutions, everything that we believed in, everything that we believed this country stood for. It doesn't. So we have a choice, and that is to fix it somehow, and that doesn't seem to work in elections, or leave it. I'm just putting that out there. How to recognize a psy-op is coming up tonight on the extension for All Access Nighthawks on shadowdavis.com, and that begins in a couple of minutes, so I'll see you guys over there. For the rest of you, I love you all, I appreciate you all, and I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central with our guest, Jeff Rath from the Alberta Prosperity Project. We're talking about Alberta sovereignty tomorrow night. You guys have a great night, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.